As you all know, I'm on this marathon with a lot of these movies, mostly horror, some action. And I'm going back and I'm rewatching all the Friday the 13th movies, all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, all the Halloweens and Screams. And now here I am at Child's Play. And I gotta admit, I was a little bit hesitant at first about doing this because the movie's like really old and whatnot. But I've seen all these videos and different podcasters and people who talk about these old movies, and they're still getting a lot of good reception, a lot of views, a lot of subscribers. So I just figured, what the heck, why not? So I'll get into it. Let's look at the ratings. The ratings are kind of all over the place here. The Common Sense Media ratings are actually lower than Rotten Tomatoes, which is a little bit of a surprise. So we have Common Sense Media, we have Internet Movie Database, we have Rotten Tomatoes, and Google users. And the ratings are 40, 67, 73, and then Google has 70 to 79. Now, Gunned Down by Detective Mike Norris. Dying murderer Charles Lee Ray uses black magic to put his soul inside a doll named Chucky, which Karen Barkley then buys for her young son, Andy. When Chucky kills Andy's babysitter, the boy realizes the doll is alive and tries to warn people, but he's institutionalized. Now Karen must convince the detective of the murderous doll's intentions before Andy becomes Chucky's next victim. And it's been a long time since I've seen this movie, so I gotta be honest with you, a lot of that part I really kind of forgot about. I didn't remember exactly how the doll came to life, and I didn't remember that whole thing about the murderer and whatnot. So Common Sense Media has some good things right here. My 8-year-old girl watched this movie for the first time last night, spurred on by the fact that Chucky is a prominent bad guy in her Roblox games, and she wanted to know his story, blah, blah. Me personally, I don't know if... And like I said, anybody who's in my age group knows that, like, people in our parents' generation or grandparents' generation, whatever, they saw this movie and they thought it was incredibly scary, which I thought was hilarious because movies like this are kind of funny to me. Yes, it's in the same category as the Halloween and the other movies as far as it being a horror slasher, but this one has more of a comedy aspect to it because, let's face it is a doll. So, and this is just my opinion. It's like, how scary can a doll be? At the same time, I'd also say, I don't think that anybody 8 and below should be watching something like this. And I wouldn't suggest that for the other movies either. Pretty good movie, but I can't believe the idea of a 6-year-old fighting an adult. Apparently, somebody said that this movie is for people that's ages 9 and up. I kind of disagree with that. And by the way, that's a parental rating. That's a parent who wrote that. This person is a parent of a 7 and 8-year-old. I don't know. There's no way that my parents would have let me watch any of this stuff at that type of age. That's why I didn't watch this stuff till much later. Common Sense Media asked the question of, is it any good? While the premise of an evil toy has built-in appeal for youthful horror addicts, very little of this movie is easy to take seriously. Yeah. From its over-the-top 80s action beginning to its Terminator-like conclusion, you'll be amazed the actors managed to keep from giggling. Some decent moments early on evoke much sympathy for unfairly accused Andy, and there are particularly effective shudders when the script just allows our fear to do all the work, envisioning an ambulatory killer doll at large. Brief glimpses of the small, scuttling figure around corners, quick cuts to Chucky's head barely moving. Suggestions like that are unexpectedly creepy. But when the filmmakers finally unleash the full FX with Chucky snarling, swearing, biting, knifing, and flinging himself bodily at grown-ups, laughter is the gut reaction. It was, because there was some funny stuff. There was some funny stuff in there. And a parade of sequels ultimately degenerated into comedy, at least getting the inherent stupidity of the whole premise out in the open. Fans might claim to find a touch of social commentary in the detail that the good guy doll is supposed to be like Tickle Me Elmo and Xboxes in the past years, one of those in-demand Christmas gifts that cue shopper frenzies to buy them, as parodied in the non-horror Jingle All the Way. But if this was meant as any sort of slam against toy industry over commercialization, sorry, Child's Play missed that boat. Families can talk about what parts are scary and what are not. Do you find Child's Play scary? Ever find yourself being afraid of a toy or a doll? All right, I can answer that just by saying, okay, so what parts of the movie are scary, what not? I think the idea of, if you're a child and you're in your room at night and you're looking at this toy, this doll, and it just turns its head a little bit or you see it blinking, I'd probably scream. I'd probably scream about that. I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. You would do that too. What parts are not scary? The part where he was fighting the woman, Karen, and he bit her, he was swearing at her, he was doing all that stuff. That was just a little comical for me. Because it's like, just take a match and just light it up. Just burn the thing up, throw it out the window or something. Again, it's just a fantasy, comedy, horror film. That's really all it is. Do you find Child's Play scary? Ever find yourself being afraid of a toy or a doll? Me personally, no, I haven't. Some people might have had that experience, and, for some of you that probably feel differently. I mean, comment below and share your experience if you're comfortable with it. I don't know what I'm going to get out of that, but, so everybody has different things that they're afraid of or whatnot. Child's Play 3 was a part of the James Bulger murder case in England, in which 2 boys had allegedly watched the movie before killing a younger boy. The movie was blamed in tabloid press for inspiring the murder. Do you think horror movies can incite violence? Why or why not? I'll tell you this. You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of a story where you had people dress up in full costumes and they were wearing masks and they were going around cutting people and killing people. And they said that it was because they watched Scream. And so a lot of people blame Scream for that, which, by the way, there was a little meta commentary in that in the second Scream movie. But I know I'm digressing a little bit here. But, I mean, can horror movies incite violence? I would lean a little bit more towards no. But you do have some people out there that are easily influenceable and people who just don't have any sense and are downright stupid and dumb. And they just watch what they see in movies and they go copy it. And I don't know what the hell they're thinking, really, to tell you the truth, honest with you. I mean, I watch horror films. Anybody who watches this channel or you've seen a few of my videos or even just watch the stuff I post on Facebook, Instagram, everybody knows I watch horror films almost nonstop, day in and night out. And all these movies that I listed right here, plus more, Insidious, The Conjuring, The Exorcist, all these type of movies I've seen, I watch a lot of this. Not one of them has inspired me to go out and want to go kill somebody. So I personally don't think that. If you think that horror movies incite violence, you're free to disagree with that, and you can comment below and tell me why you think that's the case. And, I mean, hey, we can be respectful. I mean, we have different opinions. We're just talking about movies here. Years since the release of this movie, there have been numerous sequels, and it could be argued that Chucky is as well known as other infamous horror movie killers. What do you think is the enduring appeal of this movie and this character? How does this movie compare to the other sequels of it? Why are the sequels often not as good as the original? It's been years since I've seen anything in the Chucky franchise. And so with me being in this process now, like I'm looking at all the movies and I'll be able to answer that question in one of the other videos. I don't remember exactly off top how the rest of them turned out. I know I watched Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky. I saw like Curse of Chucky, Cult of Chucky. I will say I don't think that Cult was a little more boring to me, but we'll dive into more of that a little bit later. Why are sequels often not as good as the original? Well, that really depends on who you ask. So to me, and just my own opinion, I feel that when people ask questions like, okay, well, when you look at all these movies, Jason, Freddy, Mike, Chucky, Scream, all that, which one do you think is the best? And you're going to have at least 70 to 80% of people say, oh, it's always the original, always the first one. Scream 1, the best Scream. The first Nightmare on Elm Street, the best. First Friday the 13th, best. First Halloween, best. I feel that that's what you call that's like an obligatory automatic viewpoint that it's the best one just because it's the original. And I usually disagree with that because I feel that people don't give the sequels a chance. I feel that if you're a real horror buff and you look at some of these sequels, I think that a lot of them are just as good as the original. For example, with the Scream movies, I give all the Scream movies a 10, except for the third one, which I give an 8 or a 9 at best. With Chucky, I would say that this original one here was better than the Cult of Chucky, which I think came out in 2017. I think most of the Jason movies were about the same. I would say that Jason X was probably a little bit lower than some of the other Jasons, or even Jason Goes to Manhattan was a little lower, but it was still good. So, I mean, I don't know. Why do you think that people view the sequels as not being as good as the originals? So, I think I might actually talk about that in another video in regards to originals, sequels, remakes. I'll save that for another video. But I think that the original Child's Play was good. I give it about an 8 because the comedy aspect, like I said, it was funny some. To me, it wasn't really that scary, but I can understand how people can see it as scary. I understand the suspense of it, and I understand the thriller of it. But I imagine pretty much anybody who's a horror buff already saw this movie. I mean, it's 1988, so almost anybody has seen it. If by any chance you haven't seen it, and I usually include this in my videos, these movies are available to watch on streaming service. And I will say the first Chucky movie is on Max. I don't know how much longer it's going to be there, but in case you haven't seen it, or if you have seen it, you just want to watch it again and you don't have it on VHS or DVD or whatever, if you didn't buy it on YouTube or Amazon, it's on Max. All the other movies are on Tubi except for the remake, which I think is either on Stars or you got to buy it or rent it on Amazon or YouTube. So that's my take on the original one right there. So just let me know what you think. I got more coming soon.